I live in a typical apartment building, 9 floors up. I'm 20 years old, a freelancer, and my windows face the next high-rise across a super narrow courtyard. There's maybe 50 feet between our buildings, so when I look out, I can pretty much see everything happening in the room across the way. Most of the time it's just reflections, but dead across from my living room is where Mr. 904 lives. I never knew his name, just his apartment number. Mr. 904 was just a regular-looking guy who did regular stuff, watched TV, worked on his computer, had a cup of tea, but I noticed he never closed his blinds. Ever. Not at night, not during the day. His room was always on display. At first, I just chalked it up to a weird quirk, but after a couple of months, I caught myself thinking his routine was eerie how much it lined up with mine. When I got up, he flipped on his lights. When I sat down for dinner, he sat at his table too. I figured, okay, maybe we just have the same work schedule. Everything changed when I bought a new desk lamp. I put it on the right side of my monitor. The next morning, I looked out the window. Mr. 904 had also bought a new desk lamp, identical, and he put it in the exact same spot, to the right of his monitor. I tried to tell myself it was a popular IKEA thing. I tried to forget it, but then I started running tests. I bought this bright yellow poster with a stupid smiley face and hung it on the wall. The next day, I looked across the way. Mr. 904 had the same damn poster on his wall. Not similar, identical. I was freaked out. This couldn't be a coincidence. I started checking. I moved my bookshelf 6 feet to the left. The next morning, his bookshelf had been moved 6 feet to the left too. He wasn't just copying my life. He was reacting to my changes. He was monitoring my room so closely that he could instantly replicate a new setup. One evening, I decided to take a radical step. I stood right in front of my window and staring straight into his room, I waved at him. All I got back was darkness, but I knew he was watching. The next morning, there was a bottle of wine I didn't buy on my kitchen table. Next to it was a note written on the back of an old electricity bill. I don't drink. You looked scared. Relax. Neighbor 904. That was pure horror. My front door is always double locked. He had walked into my apartment while I was sleeping, left a gift, and walked out. I decided to do the opposite. I completely emptied my room. I took out all the furniture, leaving only my mattress and my laptop. I wanted to see if he'd follow. The next evening, I looked into his room. Mr. 904's room was totally empty too. Walls, floor, ceiling, bare. Only Mr. 904 himself was sitting on the floor with his laptop positioned right in front of the window, facing mine. He wasn't looking at the screen. He was staring right into my empty room. That's when I realized it wasn't just copying. It was control. He wanted me to know he could be me if he wanted to. I freaked out. I quickly grabbed my phone and called the police. But when I turned around to point out his apartment, Mr. 904 was no longer sitting there. The room was pitch black. All the lights, all the reflections, gone. The cops came, checked my door, locks were fine, and of course, said they couldn't do anything. They even went up to apartment 904, but it turned out no one was there. The apartment had been officially vacant and for sale for 6 months. I still don't know who he was. A guy who broke into my place just to leave wine? Who spied on me from an empty apartment and copied my every move just so I wouldn't feel alone. I moved out a week later, but every time I look into a stranger's window, I feel his intense, heavy stare. And I'm afraid I'll see an exact copy of my room there. I'm afraid he'll always know where I live. I'm 23. I work from home and I live in this small, kind of old neighborhood where the houses are packed in tight. I've got a corner lot and my front porch looks straight out at the street and my neighbor's place, Mr. Harvey. His house, number 31, was pretty much a mirror image of mine, but it looked way gloomier. Dark green siding and the blinds were always down. Mr. Harvey himself was a weird duck, a quiet, older guy who never said hi to anyone and wouldn't even look you in the eye. He was just part of the scenery I got used to tuning out. It all started with little things I only noticed because my job keeps me stuck at home all the time. My desk is right by this big window, so I'm staring at Harvey's house constantly. I realized that even though all his blinds were shut, there was this tiny little gap in the slats of one of the upstairs bedroom windows, like dime-sized. Given the angle, that gap gave him a direct shot at my desk, and basically, at me. At first I thought, nah, it's just random. But then I started picking up on stuff. Whenever I'd get up and walk over to the window, I'd get this feeling of being watched. And when I'd glance over at his house, I'd catch a faint little sparkle in that slit, like something catching the light. The first real incident happened when I ordered a new coffee maker. The delivery guy left it on my porch. I brought it in, and an hour later, I went to make a cup. It was busted. Annoyed, I took the box back out onto the porch to deal with the return later and ran out to the store. When I got back half an hour later, the box was still there. I picked it up and it felt way heavier. I opened it. Inside, right on top of the broken machine, was a neatly folded white napkin. Written on the napkin in blue pen in this fancy loopy script was, "That won't help you sleep. Try chamomile." My insomnia was this totally private thing I hadn't told a soul about. I immediately looked over at Harvey's house. The blinds were shut, but I clearly saw the shimmer in that gap disappear and then reappear, like someone had quickly ducked back. I started getting paranoid. I bought blackout curtains and kept them drawn. I moved my desk to the other side of the room so I was out of sight. It didn't help. At night, I started hearing this faint but definite tapping on the drain pipe right next to my bedroom. It was 3 short, rhythmic taps, coming at random times. I checked the cameras I put up in the backyard. Nothing. But the sound was real. One of those nights when the tapping started again, I went to the window and yanked the curtains open. I looked at Harvey's house. I saw the blinds in that second-floor gap were pushed wide open, and the light wasn't on inside. I couldn't see a face in the opening, but the window was open a couple of inches, and I felt him there. The climax hit when I decided to go visit my parents for the weekend. I packed my bags, double-checked the windows, and took off. I got back Sunday night. The minute I walked in, I knew something was off. I flipped on the living room light. On my coffee table, dead center, was the book I'd been reading, 100 Years of Solitude. I'd left it on my nightstand in the bedroom, but that wasn't the main thing. The book was open, and on the page where I'd stopped, someone had neatly underlined one paragraph, the part describing a character hiding from people and watching the world from his window. Next to it in the margin, in that same loopy script, it said, "They think they're alone. Idiots." I called the cops immediately. No sign of a break-in. Doors and windows were untouched. The cops said I must have forgotten something. I didn't buy it. I looked through the house one more time. That's when I found this. In the bedroom, on the nightstand where I'd left the book, was my laptop charger. It was neatly coiled and tied with a thin, light gray piece of coarse string. I recognized the string. I'd seen Mr. Harvey use the exact same kind to tie his mail to his gate. This wasn't a robbery. It was a visit. And he wanted me to know. Locked doors didn't stop him. I moved out the next day without even finishing packing. I still don't know how he got in, but I know he was in my house, sitting in my room, reading my book. And chances are, he's seeing all of this through that tiny little gap, watching me type these very words.